In this video, I'm going to share with you 3 progress killers that women must quit this year right now if they want to make fast progress. Hey, I'm Supriya. I want to welcome you back to the channel. It's 2023. Happy New Year. Thank you so much for the new followers. Welcome to the channel. Here I talk about how to have self-mastery over all that is stopping you from succeeding in life, business, or in your endeavors. And what I'm specializing in teaching women is to really get clear about what they want and go after it relentlessly. So thank you so much for being here, and let's get started with this week's video. Now, I want to just say, if you've been hearing yourself say, I'm not where I want to be, things aren't working out for me, I don't know what to do, well, you're probably making these 3 mistakes that I'd love for you to quit this year, because I want to take you to the other side where you're going to feel like, man, I'm on track and I feel like I'm on my purpose every single day, not someday, and I'm living my best life right now, even though I'm still working towards where I want to be. Now, that is the place you want to be, and that's what I call the unstoppable Shiro versus the reluctant Shiro, who is stopping, starting, and going, where the hell am I supposed to be? Look at me right now, and nothing's changing. So let's talk about the 3 mistakes that you have to stop making this year to be able to make quick progress in your life and business. So let's go with mistake number 1 is comparing yourself to others. Have you heard yourself say, oh, last year I took this course with someone I know, look at their results and look at mine. You know, I'm not where I'm supposed to be, and they've gone and done it so well. Maybe you've been also told by your parents or your, relatives that, oh, look at her, she's got it going on, and look at you where you are. I mean, South Asians are famous for this, right? Especially parents, uncles, aunties, they'll remind you exactly how badly you're doing all the time, shamelessly. Anyway, I digress. Let's talk about what this is really, right? So when you hear yourself say things like this, what this means is that you actually are comparing yourself to somebody else because you don't understand why it is that the other person made such big progress so quickly when you are still at the same place, despite having the same education, same advantages, same situations. But I'll tell you what the difference is between you and the other person. It's the way you consume information, process it, and then act on it. Okay? That's the only difference between you and the other people. So what actually determines how you process information is through the conditionings. What are your beliefs? What are your values? What are you? How are you looking at the world? How are you looking at the information? And how well are you able to take action right after learning something? Now, most people would say, well, I'm a quick action taker, but still there's no returns on it. Well, the thing is, one path is not fit for all either. So you have to know that you are an individual with individual needs, and this is why I teach in my Empowered You program, finding out your own true north. It's like, why am I still unmarried, right? And still unmarried because in my traditionally, right, in my culture, you're supposed to be married when you're in your 20s, supposed to be. So that's a one-size-fits-all kind of a model of, success in that culture. But I have broken cultural norms because that's not my individual outlook on life. So unless you're planning to be a sheep or a follower and not a leader, I'm not saying you have to go against the grain for everything, but there are certain things that are not going to be your path or not going to be your goals right away. So I just want you to know that when you're looking at others and you're comparing yourself to others and thinking you're not where you're supposed to be, it's a sign that you don't know where you're supposed to be. Okay, that's what you're missing. It's not that that person's kind of luckier than you or has a better performance than you. No, this is not a sprinting exercise. Even in sprinting, right? You could have been trained the same way as another person, but you're just not as a fast runner as the other person. Why? Because there are different variables. Your body, their body, your constitution, their constitution, your capacity, their capacity, different, unique. So I just want you to be remembering all of this all the time this year, which is, listen, if you are comparing yourself or feeling compared to others by others around you, stop that shit, because you are unique and you need to know what your unique path is and your uniqueness is to be able to keep moving forward on your journey. And last thing I want to share about this whole, processing ability is, in the world of human behavior, we call this the map of reality, which is like we're all looking at the world differently because we have different filters, because we have different experiences since we were born. So as long as we have that as a foundation of the way we look at things, we perceive it and we process it, then we have to realize that there are certain inner, deeper reasons for why we are not experiencing the same amount of freedom as other people. So yes, that person who you did the course with did it quicker than you because they have a certain level of freedom that you do not have. And that is an internal thing, not an external thing. So the next time you find yourself comparing yourself to another person, I want you to take a pause, take an inhale, breathe out, and look at what's happening inside of you. And if you're not in any programs, come and join my program. This is the work we do in the first few months, where we actually look at what's happening with you inside, internally. Because without that clarity, how are you going to work with that, right? Final advice for this mistake is what Jordan Peterson, this psychotherapist, has said. Don't compare yourself to others. Compare yourself to the person you were yesterday. Okay, this is going to help you speed your process up because you are here to be your best self. We're no longer in that era where it's socially accepted that you are giving yourself a hard time and you're looking down at yourself, you're not working with yourself, rather you're, jealousy, comparison, and your focus is outside. But, if you want to be a success, you need to bring your focus inside, but of course with the right tools and knowledge and guidance. And if you need help with that, please reach out. Mistake number 2, talking negatively to yourself. So, question, do you actually like yourself? I know, it's a hard one. Do you actually like yourself? When you listen to yourself, talk to yourself, check in. If you are listening to yourself from the outside, how are you speaking to yourself? Now, negative self-talk, I'll tell you something about this, where it could be coming from. And this is an identity level problem. It's not so much what you might have heard somebody else say about negative self-talk, because I've never heard it said this way. So I'm going to share what I have understood about it so far. So back when I was in my 4th year of business, I read this book called The E-Myth, right? E-Myth by Michael E. Gerber. And this is a book about business owners who needed to learn that there are 3 archetypes in a business. One is the entrepreneur, who is the visionary of the business, right? Who is the connector of the business. They go and network and they create opportunities. Second one is the manager. The manager is actually, overlooking everything, overseeing everything, and the one that actually gives everyone motivation to keep doing and being their best in the business. And then the last tier of the person who is the technician, which is the worker bee, right? So each character has its own identity or has its own value system and beliefs, right? If you find yourself talking negatively to yourself, I'll tell you what, you're probably in the worker bee level when it comes to thinking. So if you have not upgraded your thinking in your life, especially if you have started a business, especially if you are trying to expand, right? You need to take on the leader's role, the manager's role, who is the coach, the motivation giver, the encourager, the person who oversees things so that things get done and people come back, and the relationship manager, So if you find yourself being like the worker bee level person or voice in your mind, then you know that you're lacking an identity problem there. Okay. And this is the kind of stuff we work on in my Empowered You program again. And I'm going to just bring it up because this is what I do, right? This is what I'm passionate about. This is all I'm going to do this year. And I'm actually trying to create a tribe of women that are ready to give up these habits and propel their growth. Go up. Okay, coming back. So when we look at the habit of negative self-talk or giving ourselves a hard time and talking down at ourselves, or even if the language is okay, but we're actually saying it without any love or any kind of, then you know who's speaking. The speaking is happening from a very worker bee level, who is actually, their value system is always work, never satisfied. There's never enough money. There's never enough time. There's never enough energy. That's their life, the worker bee life. But if you're in the manager level, you're going to have a lot of time, a lot of space, a lot of expandedness to you, and a lot of love for what you do and who you do it with, right? So if this is too tricky for you to understand, read the book, The E-Myth by Michael E. Gerber, where you will learn about these 3 facets to being a business owner. So when I learned this, I understood, to be able to grow into the next level of me, who was the 6-figure business owner I became after that phase, right? I had to start becoming the manager of the business because I was naturally an entrepreneur, always, and a natural technician, always, but not a natural manager. Not many people that get into their own businesses are, okay? So if you're finding this to be a problem for you, I want you to take a look at it this way, that you're not adopting an identity of a leader, rather you're adopting the identity of someone that is a worker bee who is always, experiencing constraints. And so there's always this dialogue of never enough, not good enough. There's not enough time. There's not enough energy. All right. Mistake number 3 is winging it to win it. And if you're thinking that you're going to wing it to win it in anything, you're in for a ride to hit a wall at some point. And I'm going to share with you, I'm not just, giving you a hard time. I have faced it. So I'm giving you the advice that I know now. As an example, 2020 came, pandemic happened, and what happened? My life pretty much fell out and I had to rebuild from scratch. The reason being that I had just signed an 8-year lease after being in business for like 9 years. And, the lockdowns happened and my business was reliant on people coming in to see me. I didn't have an online setup. So back then I had to pay out the lawyers, the lease, etc., and I lost all my savings, right? And I had to start from scratch. Now, I knew what loose planning had done for me. When I was in my 5th year of business, I was nearly going broke and bust, which is when I met my coach, and within 12 years, I became a 6-figure business owner, the manager. But now, coming a few more years later in 2020, when everything fell apart, I just realized, well, I need to plan again. But this time I realized, I wasn't a rookie business owner anymore. I knew that I wanted to run a business still. I didn't want to become an employee. I knew that I wanted that, So I had to realize that, look, I am a different person now. I've grown, I'm 10 years older now. And I also don't want to do certain things and I really want to develop certain things. So I realized that when I first started doing things, I didn't have a clue that I needed this kind of clarity. This time at 2020, I realized, look, I really need the help of a coach. I really need some mentors to help me realize where I'm at and where I can go in the next 10 years, right? Because you can't get anywhere as quickly as you think you can, right? The reason being is that it's like the farmer, when they plant the seed into the soil, the growth doesn't happen overnight, right? That's why we have the moon cycles, the seasons, right? So we have to wait till this seed grows into the tree that we're looking to grow into. So for that to be the case, I needed to sit down and do my planning. And so if I don't do that planning, would I be doing this video right now? I wouldn't. So I'm not here to just be here for the sake of it to get myself an ego boost. I'm here with a mission, right? This is why I've got this energy to give you. This is why you're watching me, and this is why it's not a strange thing. I'm growing into the person I want to be in the next 5 years. I'm growing into the person that I want to be this week. Because everything is like, in sequential order for something to be a fruit someday. So I want you to realize this too, that the longer you wait to plan things for yourself, the longer it's going to take for you to see the results. And everything has its own season and timing. So leaders know this. Leaders know that there is a right time for right action. But if you miss that, it doesn't matter. It's never too late. And I don't want you to think like, oh, the time has gone. No, as soon as you realize it, the law of karma says as soon as you realize it, that is the time for you to actually take the step. Okay? So as long as you can realize that, look, before I heard this video from Supriya, I didn't really realize that that's what I needed to do. I knew I had an inkling, that I should do something differently. But now that I've heard this and I have this realization, if you have, then it's time for you to take that next step, which is go and plan your next 5 to 10 years. Don't sit on it. Because if you don't, right? So when you wing it, what happens is you don't have any way to actually assess whether you've been taking the right steps or the wrong steps. You don't really have anything to look back at and assess to course correct or take the next step on. Because let's face it, the seed, you put it inside the ground, the sticker might say, oh, it'll take 2 weeks to do this and that, but it may not happen in 2 weeks. What do? You dig it up and you throw it away? No, you keep it there and you stay patiently on track. But you might need to make some changes to the way you're growing it. And that's what this journey is about. But that all needs a plan, because without a plan, you won't have anything to review and course correct. Another thing about planning is that when you are winging it, it is really left up to your whim and motivation coming from inside. And we are all emotional beings. It's all a habit. It's all self, deliberately done. So you have to get inside a community or an environment where this is the norm versus where it's the norm to wing it and be in the flow of, nature, and nothing gets done that way. Of course, there's a time and place for flowing. Of course, there's a time for winging it, because I'm one of those advocates. Like when I plan a holiday, the only thing I'll plan is the flights or the train or the commute. And the rest of it is unplanned. That is my planning. So what I'm trying to say here is this sort of planning is not talking about dates. Rather, it's talking about who do I need to be today to be able to turn into that version of me in that time, right? Who do I need to show up as when I am hit with problems and setbacks or challenges to be able to be that person in 12 months' time, right? So in fact, I need to have a 12-month plan. Like I'd like to be this person in 12 months. And that version of me feels this way generally, right? But if I don't regulate that, if I don't stay accountable on that plan, then of course I can reflect back and go, well, I actually didn't put in the work to be able to get this result. So you learn from that in a very concrete, evidential way. Without that plan, without that vision, without that architecture, you won't actually be able to look back at yourself so objectively. And so what is likely to happen is another year will go by with you winging it to take a chance on life, to go, well, let's see if I can make it a good one. Well, yeah, if that's your attitude, then guess what? This is one of those contributors to feeling left behind or behind. I did this for a very long time. I was a yogi, full-time yogi for a long time, right? And the whole philosophy is flow, right? Be present. But within the presence doesn't mean that you are not heading anywhere. Yoga, it has its goals as well. Everything has a goal. Everything has a purpose. Even our cells, every cell in our body has its purpose. It knows what it has to do every day. How does it know? It's been programmed from our ancestors. It's the rule of evolution, right? So what about this entire organism, ourselves? We also need a plan. We cannot be winging it, right? So I hope that makes sense. This is all to do with life and business, not to do with your spirituality, right? I'm not giving advice there. I'm actually just trying to help you realize that if you're feeling left behind and you're not progressing, you're not making any progress, then you are not creating any way for you to progress, and that is for these mistakes. What are they again? Number one is comparing self to others. Mistake number two is talking negatively. And mistake number three is winging it to win it. So if you caught a lot of this and you've now learned something about yourself, let me know what is the next action step you're going to take. And I want to really thank you. If you made it this far, I really want to thank you for all your attention that you've paid me today. I really appreciate you. If you had any aha moments, please share it in the comments or review section of the podcast. It'll be really helpful for the other person that's going to click on and listen. By the way, I am running a free webinar this month on helping women progress faster on their journey without working harder. So if you're interested in that, click the link below in the comments section and you'll find more details on that. Until then, see you next week.